Episode 33, Epilogue. Epilogue. As I search for something I was beginning to forget. I want to hold on tightly to the wings of purity. The sun shone brightly, extending its rays along the green lands. A gust of wind blew, gentle even as it rushed high above the white of clouds. A lone white bird, its large wings spread to catch the wind, glided lazily above the clouds, its shining black eyes on the lookout for happenings as it traveled across the unknown lands. The shell of sadness is covered by the crest of a wave. The days that I was picking my way through already have to be cast away. A group of miners of Donna Mine cheered loudly outside, their hands raised in joy as their voices rang across the noisy place. They all crowded around one of their fellow friends, with excited grins on their faces.
"Gary!"
one of them shouted.
"It's great to see you back after all these years."
The half-fox man, the fur on his face a little whiter now, grinned.
"Hey, Joey, it's great to be back. It's good to see you guys again." "You bet it's good to see you again,"
another man cried.
"After you were torched by that dragon 10 years ago, we thought you and Mogu were goners."
A grin formed on his face.
"Good thing you recovered, even if you did take years, it just ain't the same without our drinking partners."
Gary grinned as well.
"Of course. Too bad Mogu isn't completely recovered yet, but he's looking good, so we can expect him back next week." "That's great news,"
a man yelled.
"We'll have a celebration next week." "A reunion,"
another added. A cheer rang through the crowd, with everyone giving each other a high five. Gary laughed at his friend's antics, glad to be back. Once everyone calmed down, one of his friends slapped his back.
"Hey, Gary, you haven't met our newest drinking partner yet, have you?"
The half-fox raised an eyebrow.
"Who?"
The crowd parted, revealing a thin man, his purple hair messy and his red-green clothes patched. He looked around nervously, stepping forward with the slowest movements.
Hello," he said. "My name is Imitai."
The others roared in laughter, as though that was the funniest thing they ever heard. Gary grinned and placed a hand on the newcomer's shoulder.
"Welcome aboard, Imitai."
When the sands awake from their sleep, a bouquet of happiness is carried over by the wind. No longer can I look back. As the white bird stopped to rest on the roof of a house, the people gathered at the southern end of Ural village, next to a particular field of corn ready to be harvested. There was no hustle and bustle today, however, everyone was dressed in their best garments, shifting nervously as they waited. A few short minutes passed, feeling as though it was a few long hours, before a modest carriage drew up from the path that led to Windia, pulled by 2 well-trained horses. The villagers gazed anxiously as they watched its occupant descend. It was a handsome young man, dressed in modest garments that did not quite fit his elegant look and short golden curls. He carried one of his own trunks, while his attendant, a serious-faced middle-aged man that carried an air of a butler, held another.
"Greetings, people of Ural,"
the young man said loudly, flashing his smile with a wave of his free hand.
"I am Joseph Garewell, and I hail from our grand capital of Windia."
The villagers stared at him, as though they were looking at something from another world. An old man, trying to hide his surprise, stepped forward and bowed respectfully.
"Welcome to our humble village, Mr. Mayor."
The others quickly bowed as well. Joseph laughed.
"Oh, no, I'm not the actual mayor of this village. It is my father who was appointed by the castle, but as he's busy dealing with a problem at our summer home in Donna, I've been sent here ahead."
This time, the old man could not hide his surprise.
I see.
He patted his back reassuringly.
Not to worry, not to worry. I just need to know how things are run around here so I can relay it to my father. I heard the previous mayor set the taxes a little too high.
A woman nodded.
Yes, Sir Garewell. He robbed us of our hard work and sold it to the black market. He didn't even bother listening to us.
A man cried. As if a valve had broken, the villagers were suddenly filled with the urge to speak, and they all tried to speak at once.
Ah, I see.
Joseph smiled and waved them quiet.
Well then, if you would explain to me how things were run around here, maybe we can agree on a rate. But I assure you it won't be as high as your last tax.
A cheer broke through the crowd. Some of the men could not help but to dance about, some of the women were teary from joy. Things were certainly looking better in Yarl village. Somewhere on this planet, a smiling face is born. Eyes dyed in bright sky blue sparkle.
Hal and Theo from Highwind Street, Windia have arrived.
The guard's purposeful voice announced loudly. Nina sighed, she hated audiences. Still, she had no choice, since her father was ill in bed and her mother thought it would be good practice for her to take over. Oh well, it was already evening. It would soon end. But, as the two announced men entered, she was stunned. Some of the maids gasped in surprise. Both men were covered in snowy white flour and egg yolks, their expression grim. One of them wore a white apron, while the other had a broken eggshell on his head.
What is it that you have come to seek?
Nina asked, sitting up slowly.
Your Majesty,
the men said at the same time, and then glared at each other. It seemed they were both eager to tell their tale. She sighed again.
I take it that you are both on disagreeable terms and you have come to me to settle your disputes. Very well.
She gestured at the apron-wearing man.
You, tell me your tale first. Yes, Your Majesty,
he answered.
My name is Hal, a baker from Best Bread Bakery on Highwind Street. I bought 20 bags of flour from the grocery near Fountain Square and was on my way back when this.
He threw an angry look at the other man.
Hooligan crashed into me at the corner and made me drop all my bags of flour.
The eggshell man, presumably Theo, growled.
Crashed into you? It was you who crashed into me. What is your version of the story?
Nina questioned him quickly, before they erupted into another argument. Theo bowed, the broken eggshell on his head rolling onto the clean carpet.
Yes, Your Majesty. My name is Theo, I'm a delivery boy at Angel Chicken Farm, also on Highwind Street. I was delivering cartons of eggs to Pan Bakery 2 streets away when this.
He glanced at Hal, his eyes blazing.
Nasty piece of work crashed into me. Nasty piece of work.
The baker exclaimed.
Get a better insult, peasant. You're as much of a peasant as I am. Egghead. You. Flowerhead.
The two men argued heatedly in the throne room of Windia Castle, with the soldiers and maids in the vicinity staring at them, dumbfounded. Nina rolled her eyes as she rested her arm on the armrest, leaning her cheek on a hand, hoping that they would cool down enough after they had argued long enough. After some time, however, the quarrel showed no signs of ceasing.
How long have they been at it, Alia?
The princess asked without looking up. Her attendant, a sweet girl about the same age with her long brown hair tied up, answered,
It's been about 15 minutes, princess.
She sighed.
I could cook a bowl of noodles for myself with that much time.
She stood up abruptly, stepped forward, and raised her voice as high as she could.
Silence!
Her shrill voice echoed along the walls, stunning everyone in the hall into silence.
You are here to settle your dispute, are you not? I may not have the skill and knowledge to settle it as well as my father would, but now that he is ill in bed, you will have to live with it.
She frowned.
Do you wish to continue your argument in prison?
Realization hitting them, the two men quickly knelt in respect, their heads lowered.
And no, Your Highness,
Theo said, nervously.
We've come in hopes of settling our problem with your wisdom, Your Highness.
Hal added quickly. Nina nodded in approval.
Fine. To settle your dispute.
She pointed at them.
Each one of you will have to pay enough zenny to the other to pay for damages. What?
They exclaimed. She crossed her arms, her eyes gleaming dangerously.
Are you not satisfied?
They shook their head quickly.
And no, Your Highness. We're satisfied. We're very satisfied. Good.
She turned to one of the soldiers.
Please accompany them and ensure that they settle their dispute amicably.
The guard saluted, smiling in amusement.
Yes, Your Highness.
As he accompanied the two disappointed men out of the throne room, Alia faced the princess.
Wow! That's great, Princess!
She cried in awe. Nina grinned.
I'm good at this, aren't I?
She stretched.
But I think that's enough audiences for today. I'm going to take a bath. Yes, Princess, I'll draw the bath for you.
With that, Alia rushed over to the princess' room. When Nina was about to follow suit, she happened to glance at the wide-open window. Her eyes shone as the great white bird flew past, wings spread as it glided lazily in the evening sky. She followed it quickly, running to the balcony outside her room, where she could see it disappearing over the horizon to the south.
Such a big white bird!
She muttered to herself.
I wonder if Ryu will see it too.
The days that will pass us by are already a distant dream. I shall go with you, so please hold my hand.
Oh man, doesn't this just beat all?
Ray grumbled, shaking his head.
Why do I have to help you move these boxes?
Momo dropped a box on her desk at her tower.
Because I asked you to, and it's not like you're busy right now. So what, I'm just a mover for you now. Yes, you're obviously strong enough.
She grinned.
That's a compliment, you know.
He was taken aback.
Thanks, I guess.
He placed the box he was carrying down on the floor, beside the desk.
So, why are you packing your stuff today? You're moving somewhere.
She shook her head.
No, I just wanted to clear that particular floor so I can set up the proper lab for my new project there.
Ray shrugged.
I probably shouldn't ask, since I won't understand much of it anyway. Oh, you will.
She smiled.
I'll be researching on ways to improve plants so that they can live in the desert.
She paused, seemingly thoughtful.
Or maybe I should develop fertilizer first. I don't know anything about machinery, or what you call science,
he admitted, but then smiled.
But it's a great goal.
She grinned, looking proud of herself.
Of course it is. After the trip across the world and fighting the goddess, I figured we should do our share in surviving in this world.
He grinned as well.
Since when the machine-crazy muddlehead thought of anything but finishing researches and projects? Hey, take that back.
She tossed a small book at him. his eyes widened as he ducked.
Hey!
Honey, standing on a desk cluttered with books, shook her head exasperatedly. The white bird, sitting on the windowsill of the room, cackled, as though laughing. Both of them looked up, surprised. Ray spoke first.
Hey, that weird bird sounds like it's laughing at us. Yeah.
Momo shook her head.
Do you think it is? Who knows?
He shrugged, then smirked.
We argue a lot, don't we? And whose fault is it?
She laughed.
But you're not that bad a person, Ray.
He smiled.
You too, Momo.
Deciding that it had seen enough, the white bird spread its wings and took off, flying into the distant skies. The two of them rushed to the window to look.
There it goes!
Ray cried, putting a hand over his eyes to see properly.
It's a migratory bird,
Momo said, shaking her head.
I wonder if it's going to a faraway place, just like we did.
He shrugged.
I don't know, Momo, but who knows?
And there they stayed for some time, watching the bird disappearing into the distant eastern sky, together. As I searched for something I was beginning to forget. I want to hold on tightly to the wings of purity.
Mama!
The little baby cried, flashing her partially toothless grin.
Papa! Oh, Shade!
Shadis cried, tears in her eyes.
Call me Mama again!
Bade, standing beside his wife, grinned proudly. Now, it wasn't a strange sight to see a small child learning to call her parents. Rather, the strangest sight would be all the burly sailors cheering at the top of their voices. The child was unflustered, she had grown used to the noise by now.
Miss Shade learned how to speak,
one sailor exclaimed.
This calls for a celebration,
another declared.
A celebration,
Zig yelled, his voice the loudest among them.
Yeah.
Another cheer rang through the wharf of Rapala. Bade shook his head quickly, trying to calm his men down.
No, wait, there's no need to raise a fuss about this.
But no one was listening to him, as they were already discussing the celebration plans loudly. He sighed softly. Shadis giggled, carrying her daughter in her arms.
Oh, let them be, Bade. Shade must be happy, having so many uncles to take care of her.
She gave Shade a kiss on the forehead.
Aren't you, Shade? Mama!
Shade said happily.
Papa!
Bade smiled, giving her a kiss on the forehead as well.
Yeah, we're lucky, aren't we?
His wife gave him a light peck on the lips.
Yes, we're lucky.
The white bird, perched on a nearby crate, whistled. The time I crossed the river of memories. I was becoming cowardly. But because you were there for me, I could still draw on my courage.
Ugh!
The large oxman grunted as he tugged at the rope that extended into the sea.
Looks like we got another big one.
Turning to his assistant, he shouted,
Get the other workers.
His half-monkey assistant saluted.
Yes, boss. Right away, boss.
Facing away, he cupped his hands around his mouth and yelled as loud as he could,
Whoever helps boss gets extra 20 ZENNY in wages.
For a small man, his voice was huge. It rang across Steel Beach like a huge shockwave, startling the other machine guildsmen. Once the words had registered in their heads, with money gleaming in their eyes, they all crowded around the oxman within seconds.
Heave, ho!
They cried.
Heave, ho!
They pulled simultaneously, in the same monotonous rhythm as though they were marching, their cries louder than the rush of sea waves.
Ugh, it's heavy.
One guy yelled.
Keep at it, boys.
The half-ox said, pulling at the rope with his muscular arms, then yelled at his subordinate,
Can you see what it is yet?
The assistant stood on his toes, with one hand shielding his eyes from the sun.
I see it, boss. Something big.
Yes, it was certainly something big. It required all the strength of the crowd to pull it out, and soon everyone could see a huge shadow in the water. Then, the monkey man paled.
Boss, it don't look like no machine. What? Another one of those monster fishes.
Turning to the rest of the machine guildsmen.
Go get the machines. Right away, sir.
They answered and ran off at once, leaving the oxman to pull the rope on his own.
The last time it made fools out of us and the strangers beat it up easily.
The boss grinned.
This time we're prepared.
Annoyed at being pulled out of the sea against its will, the thing in the sea splashed out of the water, leaping high into the air and crashing onto the ground with a big crash. It was another angler, slightly smaller than the last one they saw. Its whiskers wriggled from its face as it roared, revealing gleaming sharp teeth. The guildsmen retreated out of the way, but they weren't afraid. At that very moment, several heavy footsteps sounded in the air. 3 humanoid robots marched across the sandy, machine-filled beach, arms poised for battle. Within the glass hemisphere that was its head, the workers controlled the large machines with ease. The angler roared again, its whiskers raised and glowing dangerously as a burst of blue thunderbolt came rushing from the tip and struck the robots mercilessly. The monkey man flinched, even though the thunderbolt didn't hit him. It had to hurt. However, as soon as thunderbolt faded, the 3 robots emerged unscathed. The half-ox grinned.
Lightning-proof bots. Go get them. Yes, sir.
Came the workers' voices in unison, and the battle robots charged, switching their fists for flamethrowers, their new weapons clicking into place. Instead of chrism bullets, it fired a blast of flames. The angler roared, writhing violently in pain as it burned in the hot flames. It thrashed around, its strong tail knocking a pile of machines, but there was no escape for it. Soon, it was just a body on the ground, burned to a crisp.
Fried fish, anyone?
The boss shouted. The guildsmen broke into a loud, enthusiastic cheer. And the bird cackled with laughter. This world is always overflowing with dreams. As I protect this seemingly fragile heart.
What?
The parch mayor cried.
You want me to tell you about the legendary mariner so you could make me eat those nasty fish again, don't you?
The children were taken aback, their eyes gazing at him in fear.
And no, Mr. Mayor,
one child spoke up.
We just want to. Fiddlesticks.
The mayor stood up abruptly, grabbed the nearest cushion and tossed it at them.
I won't let you stuff me with any more nasty fishes. Ah!
The children screamed, turning and escaping from the house of horrors, vowing never again to return.
Mr. Mayor, yes sir.
His attendant squealed.
Please don't throw things at the dear children, they only wanted to know about the legendary mariner. You'll only give me more nasty fish to eat, aren't you?
The mayor stubbornly crossed his arm.
I'll only tell them about the mariner only if you make some shiso for me to eat.
She blinked.
Shiso, sir? But it's made of. I know what it's made of.
He snapped.
Go on, quickly bring a whole plate for me. And bring those children back when you're done, and not a moment sooner.
The attendant glowed with happiness.
Yes, sir.
The mayor was changing, thanks to the strangers teaching her how to make the windy a delicacy. And, atop a wooden house, the white bird decided it had rested enough. Taking off into the sky, it turned to the north, prepared to cross the wide ocean. I want to be looking at your gaze. And I shall go with you always. Ryu stepped down from the portal, feeling appreciative towards the portal technology Miria had left behind. He was beginning to have second thoughts about the goddess, that she might actually be serious about protecting this world. Like a protective mother rather than a goddess desiring a position of power. But it was the path he had chosen, the path he had chosen to live. And he had one last task in this world. For Lord Loudon. Outside the portal room, he descended the long staircase that led into Dragnir. He had noted that the dragon village had hardly changed since he was here with his comrades the last time. It was still a desolated village, with its elderly residents getting on with their daily lives. However, as soon as they had spied him, an expression of hope and happiness washed over their faces as they dropped everything they were doing and crowded around him. In their excitement, they all spoke at the same time, their words garbled among another's. All Ryu could catch was,
"Welcome back, Lord Ryu."
Grial, the village patriarch, raised a hand and the crowd grew silent.
"Welcome home, Lord Ryu,"
he said, bowing in respect. The other villagers bowed as well. The young man nodded.
"Master Grial."
He glanced at the others.
"Everyone." "Lord Ryu."
An old woman spoke, her voice quivering.
"Since you have returned since your departure into the desert weeks ago."
She shook her head, hesitating.
"You have finally defeated the goddess."
All eyes focused on the Dragon Prince, hope and anticipation filling their eyes. Ryu smiled.
"Yes, I have."
Gasps came from the crowd.
"It is truly astounding news,"
Grial said.
"The destiny we all have been waiting for centuries. It is finally during the 10th cycle of the Destined One when the destiny is fulfilled."
He smiled.
"Well done, Lord Ryu." "Can we?"
A woman shook her head, hesitance in her cracked voice.
"Can we dare to hope that we can return to God's realm? To return to what we once were? That's what I'm here for."
Ryu lowered his head, his eyes closed.
"I'm traveling around the world, in order to bring the souls of the brood together again. Once I'm done."
He gazed at his people and smiled.
"We'll all return to God's realm, back to Lord Loudon."
Several gasps filled the air once more, and some of the women shrieked in joy as they hugged one another. Even the men couldn't contain their emotions, some had even started crying, while the others were teary.
"May Loudon bless you, Lord Ryu,"
an old woman cried between her tears.
"Thanks to you, we can all finally rest in peace,"
a man shouted, burying his face in his arm.
"Everyone, we'll all be together as a family again."
Ryu smiled and spread his hands.
"Now, please close your eyes, and picture God's realm in your mind."
Sounds of excitement turned into silence as the people obeyed, each one closing their eyes as a look of happiness, of utmost joy, showed on their faces. Some of them clasped their hands together, as though in prayer. Gradually, the people began transforming into dazzling spheres of light that floated in the air. Spheres of light that were free from suffering, finally in peace. They circled around Ryu, who then closed his eyes, and disappeared into him. One by one, they entered his body, awaiting the time they would finally be where they belong. God's realm. When the last of the spheres had disappeared into him, Ryu opened his eyes once more. His task in this village was complete. It was then when Lawton spoke to him.
Thank you, Ryu.
There was utmost gratitude in his voice.
Thank you for your loyalty. No, Lord Lawton.
He shook his head.
Thank you for giving me your power. For giving me life.
With that, he turned back towards the portal. I promise I'll come and see you soon, Nina. And the white bird soared overhead. As I search for something I was beginning to forget. I want to hold on tightly to the wings of purity.
Dad! Dad!
The children cried, running across the grassy areas of the oasis past the desert of death. A man, dressed in white clothes, looked up from his book.
Huh? What is it, children? Dad!
One boy shouted excitedly.
The seeds we planted a few days ago sprouted. What?
He exclaimed, standing up so suddenly that he knocked his head on the low ceiling hard. Once he had recovered enough from the pain, holding his head, he spluttered,
The seeds sprouted. Yes, Daddy.
A small girl giggled.
It's the first time in years. It's in the sand, too.
As I search for something I was beginning to forget. I want to hold on tightly to the wings of purity. The white bird, having flown a long distance, finally stopped to rest on the sea of sand below. It perched on a piece of machinery, its black eyes gazing around. In the distance, the ruins of Kairushan stood, a desolated, lonely place that was once an exciting city full of people. Among the broken machines, the bird could see the top of a pink bulb, mostly buried in the sand. It jumped onto the sand, staring at the pink thing curiously. Suddenly, the bulb shook. It shook again and again, first slowly, then violently, as though trying to let something out. The bird took a step closer, wondering what it was. And suddenly, a small sapling sprouted from the bulb, startling the bird enough to jump back. It was truly a magical plant, sprouting into a tiny sapling in an instant when it took days for an ordinary plant. It shook itself happily, drawing in the power of the sun, looking as though it was determined to withstand the harsh environment. And there it would stay, to grow into a large tree that would be the center of a lush forest, prevailing against the great desert. Pico's task in this world had been fulfilled. Life begins again. End of epilogue. Afterward. In case you're wondering, I wrote this epilogue with an anime ending in mind, something like Wild Arms 2's ending credits, if you've played it, with Breath of Fire 3's ending credits song Pure Again playing in the background, hence the lyrics. It's fun writing it. But for those of you who have fully memorized the lyrics for some reason, you'll notice that I've switched and changed the lyrics around, so that I could shorten it. I didn't have enough scenes to go with the songs. O_O. Well, that's the end of Breath of Fire 3. Hopefully you enjoyed yourselves reading it. Edit. There seems to be some confusion with Ryu's scene back there, in which some people thought he was going to go off without saying goodbye. But that's not what I want it to be. Anyway, I think I owe a little explanation here. What Ryu does is going back towards the portal, where it's connected to many other portals around the world, which implies he's traveling around the world for some reason. Nina stays back at the castle as her duty as the princess should be calling pretty strongly for her after she took off to join the others against Miria, which shows that despite their love for each other, sometimes they can't always be together. Besides, if I don't make Ryu disappear into light like the other dragons, there'll still be opportunities for them to see each other again, right? Thanks for reading this story. Author's musings. So, here we are, at the end of the novelization. How was it? Fun? Epic? Disappointing? While I've been writing stories for years, unless you don't count that horrible, emotionless drivel in 2000 that I called a story, this is actually my first novelization. What? The first novelization? Way. Yep, it's my first. I used to write original fantasy/adventure stories before my 2-year-long hiatus before the start of this novelization, but I had to warm up my writing skills again, so I decided to write novelizations for a while since the storyline is already, all portrayed out for me to use. But you know what? I loved writing this Breath of Fire 3 novelization so much, in fact I don't think I want to go back to original fiction for a while. So much for being an original novel writer. XP. The main Breath of Fire 3 soundtrack used while writing this novelization is Epitaph of Alan and Cyril, OC Remix. D. Why choose Breath of Fire 3 for a novelization? Why not other games? The first reason, I love dragons. I've always loved dragons being the really powerful legendary avian creatures, with power that could shake the world. This trait really showed in my completed original novel. While I'm normally tolerant of them, I dislike stories that describe dragons as evil beings, like how they're normally described in Western lore, the whole prince rescues princess from evil dragon thing. Breath of Fire 3 is different because even though they're first portrayed as an evil race, they're actually misunderstood. I also love azure-haired, good-looking male protagonists, being the silly female I am. Ryu fits the requirements. Of course, I didn't pick Breath of Fire 3 just because it has dragons and a good-looking azure-haired hero. In that case, why wouldn't I choose Breath of Fire, Breath of Fire 2, Breath of Fire 4 or even Breath of Fire 5? Well, it's pretty simple. I love Breath of Fire 3 the most among the Breath of Fire series. One reason is because it's the first of the series I played. Nostalgia played an important role in my choice. I'm sure you feel nostalgic if you've played the game before you read this story, right? XP. Will there be other novelizations in future? Of course. Maybe not another Breath of Fire game novelization so soon, since I've just finished Breath of Fire 3, but there will be another game novelization in near future. The title I've chosen for my next novelization is Alundra, which is an action RPG also on the PS1. It has a storyline involving the rise of a demon god, who seems to be able to create chaos by making the villagers of Anoa go to sleep, get lost in days-long nightmare and never wake up. It's pretty scary. Alundra, the good-looking but sadly not azure-haired protagonist, has the ability to enter dreams, and he has to figure out how the god manages to get into these people's souls before they all die. It does seem I like gods/goddesses stories, doesn't it? O_O. So far, I've only finished prologue. I hope to finish it by end year so I can start posting it here for you guys to read, but don't count on it. I'm starting work soon, and I may not be able to finish it in time. Still, one can hope, right? XP. Special thanks to all readers and reviewers out there. In no particular order. Thanks to everyone for your reviews. It's really heartwarming to see feedback on this novelization, to know that people are actually reading it. Thanks to other readers even if you didn't review. I'm just glad you're reading my novelization. D. Thanks for your support, everyone.